Hey, Nick. Sean Spicer. I understand there's some controversy brewing about how many subscribers you have on YouTube. You have more subscribers than anybody. And it's probably the biggest, largest YouTube subscription that anybody's had. But also, it's not numbers that matter, Nick. And I know everyone's going to quibble over this, but it's content. It's quality. And your subscribers are amazing. They're great. They're high quality subscribers, and that's really what you have to look at. Don't just focus on the numbers. I mean, if people are spewing a bunch of fake news, just don't get in the mud. They're amazing folks. Their engagement, the way that they like the videos. Anyway, I hope this puts this to the end. I hope that this controversy is over, and we know who the real YouTube subscriber champ is, and it's you, Nick.
I always love that bit. The way they like he's got no idea what he's talking about. He's just like, the way they like the views. And, oh my God, I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of Spicy doing that. The only one I really want, I would drop $1,000. I swear to God, I would drop $1,000 if I could get Baghdad Bob to just be there, like, in time is not surrounded. There are no American forces at the lobby of In Time. We done no tanks. America is running from In Time, or whatever, just something along those lines. It was Baghdad Bob. Oh, dear Lord. Well, welcome, Lance. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Off Time. I swear to God, the other thing I'm thinking of doing is changing the name to Time Off, just because it's easier to say. But I'm so used to that would probably be a better name for the show. It's like, oh, then I got to rebrand it. And, oh, dear Lord, I'm nothing if not lazy.
Off Time implies that it's a musical piece and you're not keeping the correct beat.
That's a good point. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll have to. Yeah, you just have to do that. Anyways, so for those of you who are joining now, normally we normally pre-record these and then we just chop them up and try to do 15-minute segments. You and I have been going usually for about 90 minutes. It's always been a blast. We've been doing it live. I think that's just a lot easier to do. But anyone who wants to talk to Lance themselves, he's going to be available in the Discord after the show. And we had originally scheduled this for all of August. If you're up for continuing, I'd love to do a few more of these. I know, too, that 𝗲𝗍𝗆, who you've met, wanted to maybe do one or two just shooting the shit with you. It'll be from a different perspective, but he's a college professor, teaches psychology classes, and
yeah, I'd be good for the 1st of September, but not the 8th. And after that, we'll have to see.
All right. Well, we'll play it by ear.
I've got a doctor's appointment on the 8th that I got to deal with.
Well, we will, as long as you're willing to keep coming. I'm thoroughly enjoying these, and I know 𝐓𝐢𝐿𝐼𝐺 would love to. It's funny. You and 𝐓𝐢𝐿𝐼𝐺 remind me so much of if I'm on the Discord, the two of you are so similar in so many ways, and it's when I see the military coming out, I'll tell 𝐓𝐢𝐿𝐼𝐺, oh, listen, can I call you back in about a half hour? It's like, sure. 38, 40 minutes later, I call him back. He's like, you're 8 minutes late. I was like, you fucking son of a... And it's great. It's great on the other side, admittedly, because I contacted you. You're like, I'll be in the green room in 8 minutes, and I was just like, yeah, in 8 minutes I can set my watch, but do it. You'll be in the green room. You've been there. I'm 2 minutes late. You're already waiting for me. I was like, oh fuck, it's my own show, and he's waiting for me in the green room. So it's yeah.
I'm gonna use that as a segue into an amusing anecdote that you'll find funny. When I went to the Command Staff and Joint Staff and Command College, which is a follow-on to my professional military education from Naval War College. This is to become a joint accredited officer. Anyway, each of the services sends people to this, so it's not just Navy. It's all 4 branches plus some civilians and such. So the Navy, the different services hold orientations for their personnel who are in the matriculating class. And the Navy announced, we're going to be meeting in this building at 8 o'clock. So At 7:45, I show up. I'm the first, but then there are like 3 or 4, 5 other surface warfare officers show up. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Trickling in over the next, maybe 5 minutes before 8, you have the supply corps officers, the civil engineering officers, the JAG officers, the various other types. At precisely, and I mean on the second-hand mark, all the submariners walk in as a group. And then about 20 minutes, 30 minutes after it's technically already started, the Airedales start rolling in. So I always thought that was a great encapsulation of the mindsets of the different branches within the Navy, of the different corps, officer corps, of how they think of time. I'll typically be a little early if I can be.
Well, and I think that's a good, because, if you're not early, then you're late. If you show up when it starts, well, you're not seated, you're not ready for it to start yet. That's when you showed up. If it starts at 8, if you show up at 8, you're late. I strongly believe in, believe it or not. I know anyone who watches this show has a very hard time believing that. But
the funny part is the submariners, they're what I call checklist mentality people. Mm-hmm. I mean, they literally do everything according to a very rigid checklist. And if it says, be there at 8, that's exactly when they walk in the door. Because if you wanted them there 5 minutes early, you would have said 7:55. But you didn't. You said 8. Therefore,
that's fair. Because actually, one of the things that really pisses me off is dentists, doctors, anything like that. It's like, okay, your appointment's at 8. I was like, okay, great. So I will be there at 8. And they say, make sure you show up 15 minutes early to fill out the paperwork. I was like, okay, so I have to be there at 7:45. It's like, tell me when I need to be there, and I will be there, and I'll be on time. But don't tell me I need to be there at 8, and then I need to show 15 minutes early to, oh, dear Lord. I've been a Massachusetts guy, born and raised Massachusetts most of my life. I was in California for a little while. Oh, no interest in going back. And plenty, really pleasant people, genuinely laid back. I have to believe it's going to add 15% to your lifespan just hanging out there, because it's a very kind of stress-free environment when it's not on fire. But yeah,
when it's not on fire.
Oh yeah, no, they don't have. They're like. And I've heard people say they don't really have seasons over there. If you're from Massachusetts, yeah, they don't. Except, well, they do. They've got mud season, fire season, earthquake season. These are not seasons I'm used to, but they've got them. And fire season's no joke over there. So, I was over there, and I started meeting some of the neighbors, and they said, "Oh, you're from Massachusetts?" I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh God, it's like, we're so glad to see you. We're glad to have you, but we've noticed that people from New England can sometimes be kind of assholes." And I was just like, I got offended. By the time I left, I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. Call me an asshole. I see where you're coming from." Okay, somebody did a study. This is a legit thing. How long before when the light turns green? Before the person behind you honks, if you haven't started moving. In Massachusetts, it's like 0.7 seconds. In New York, it's 0.4 seconds from red to green, that if you're not moving, they're going to honk at you. In California, it was like 3.5, 4 seconds, and I have literally been in California and seen the guy ahead of me miss the light. He just sleeps right through the green light. It turns yellow, turns red again.
And nobody behind him wants to honk, because that would be rude and presumptuous.
Yes! And I'm sitting there, I'm doing my first shopping trip there, and I'm in the groceries, and I'm behind this lady, and she's coming down the frozen food section, and she finds somebody on the other side who she knows, and so they start chatting. And then everybody starts lining up behind them and starts going through whatever's in the frozen section right there, as if they meant to stop there. But the reality is there's a line. Nobody can get through because it's blocked going both ways. And they're all like, oh, wow, I really could use some frozen pureed tofu. Yeah, let me look at that. I wonder what's in that. And they're just pulling this shit out. And I was like, is anyone going to notice that while they're talking? And it's just Oh, for fuck's sake. And they had that at, my wife shows up. She had a meeting, 8 o'clock. She shows up at 7:45. She's the first one there. And she shows up at 7:45 so that she's ready when the meeting starts at 8. 8 o'clock rolls around, nobody's there. 8:15, nobody's there. 8:30, nobody's there. 8:45, the first people start rolling in for the meeting. And like, oh wow, you're early. She's like, well, it said 8 o'clock. They're like, oh yeah, but we got busy and this and that, and it didn't start till like 9:30, and there's still people hadn't shown. And it's just like, this was 𝗲𝗲𝐻 Research Institute. Okay, this is oh dear Lord. And I was just like, okay. Either I have to leave or I have to accept the fact I'm going to spend the majority of my life in prison for having murdered somebody out here, because I can't. I just can't. I'm on my way to the dentist. I leave so that I got time to leave. My neighbor sees me. I was like, oh shit, my neighbor saw me. He's like, hey, how you doing? What are you doing today? I was like, I don't know. I'm on a clock.
Don't go busy. Shut up.
Yep. Yeah. Downtime, just nicking in a hammock.
All I will say to you about that is, if you thought it was bad in California, don't go to Hawaii.
I've been to Hawaii briefly. I'll tell. Oh, you will appreciate that story. But $2 Sinister Porpoise. I hate prologue recursively. I hate prologue. Sinister Porpoise, our resident IT technician, every joke is either going to be recursion or solipsism is usually what we're getting. The recursion ones, I didn't know you could really make good jokes out of recursion, but she manages to find a way to do it. It's really... anyways, okay, so I was in Hawaii for my wife had a conference, and I used to go to all the conferences with her. So what would happen is, scientists are pretty smart about this shit. They're like, okay, we're going to do a conference in Lake Tahoe. Why? Well, we got to do it somewhere kind of neutral, where they don't have like a lot of research institutes. And then everybody flies in for the conference, and somebody figured out like 20 years ago, since the business is footing the bill, pick Tahiti or something like that and have the conference there. So I've gone to Rome. We did Lake Tahoe. We did Hawaii. We did a whole bunch of them. She doesn't take me anymore, and this is why. And I think this is grossly unfair. I'm going to have you. You're going to be Dr. Phil for this one. You're going to mediate and say why I'm being hosed. But we go to the conference.
How does that make you feel?
I'm very disrespected. Well, we go to the conference, and I'm a writer, so I've been doing this YouTube channel. I am now a producer and host of a YouTube channel, but I have a few books under my belt. It's really weird. Every now and then I get recognized. It's rare, but it does happen. I was playing a game. I was at Guild, and I was on the Discord, and so it ended up being my real name. And I was like, oh, I got to change that. They're like, yeah, I know who Winston is. And I was not Winston, Charles. Winston's the reference, but I said, I know who Charles is. I was like, oh, okay. So that's just reference to the only book I had that had any real critical success. So anyways, I'm there, and I'm bored out of my skull. Everybody's talking science, and I was like, wait a minute, wait. I'm a professional, and they're not really recognizing my skills here and my contribution. As a writer, it's my job to tell stories, make fictions, make great, believable characters. So I went to the computer lab, printed out a new name tag for myself, and made up a new name. And under it, it said CIA. So instead of guest, I wrote CIA. Okay, I figured this is fine. So I go. And I'm wearing that, and somebody comes up to me and says, oh my God, what's the CIA doing here? And this was shortly after 9/11. Like, what's the CIA doing here? And I was like, yeah, that's supposed to say guest. I'm just here, not in official capacity. So it's just, but it's been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you. And I just move on and do that, which of course gets them thinking like, oh my God, the CIA's here. So I was doing this, and I didn't even eat lunch with her, which is okay. I eat lunch on my own and do all these other things. So finally I'm sitting down, and somebody comes up to me and says, oh, you're with the CIA. And I was just like, yeah, that's a mistake. I said, yeah, I am, but it's not. I'm not here officially. I was like, oh, I totally get it. I'm with the CIA too. I was like, whoa, okay. And at first I panicked, but I said to myself, no, hey, I'm a professional. I was like, I can do this. So I start doing,
bullshit artist.
Exactly. I get paid for this shit. So I was just like, okay. I need to, I was like, okay, I need to find sources. Jack Ryan worked for the CIA, the Hunt for Red October, all those things. Okay, just sort of go along that. So what do you do at the CIA? I said, I'm not supposed to talk about it. I'm an analyst, but I'm not supposed to talk about it. So, okay, yeah, no, I totally get that. So where are you out of? And I was just like, okay. If I say Langley, which is just the real easy one to say, I was like, I'm probably going to get my ass in trouble. So I said, oh no, I'm usually at the DoD, or I'm in the Pentagon. He goes, me too. I was like, fuck. Fuck. Every time I think I'm out of this.
The hole is getting deeper.
It's getting much bigger. And then I'm sitting there going like, by the way, is it a felony to impersonate a CIA officer? Just asking for a friend. So it's just like, okay, so where are you? And I'm sitting there going, oh God, the Pentagon. What do I know about the Pentagon? Okay, it's got 5. Don't they have like A wing, A ring, B ring, D ring? See, so I said something like D ring. He goes, really? And I was just like, oh shit, what did I just say? I don't even know what I just said. And I'm just like, oh fuck. He goes, yeah. Well, actually, I skipped a part because he's just like, oh, I'm at the Pentagon too. And I was like, fucking A. I was just like, I can't win for losing with this guy. So he's really interested in what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out how I can extricate myself with A, maintaining face, but B, not committing any more felonies. So I bail. At this point, I pull the ripcord, and I'm just like, listen, I'm really, I can't, since you've been around, I really shouldn't be talking about it, but it's been a pleasure meeting you. Oh, I totally understand. Gets up, walks away like he's never met me. I was just like, oh, wow, I'm really good. Shit. So her lab, my wife's lab. So that's the thrust of the story. My wife's lab ended up. They loved it. They're like, Nick, you speak Russian, right? I said, yeah. They're like, can you do, like a Russian accent in English? I was like, I haven't tried, but I'm sure I could. He goes, how about your cosmonaut next? They wanted me to do this. And I said, no, I have to be somebody different every time. Otherwise, it's not a challenge, you see. Otherwise, I'm not. And my wife tried to have a sense of humor about it, but it was clear. She did not like it. Her lab loved it. So there would just be this petition going around for what I would be at the next. Yeah. So suffice it to say, I don't get to go to these things anymore. I love her, but she doesn't seem to have the sense of humor. So Dr. Phil, how do I get her to see the humor in this and agree to let me come and be a cosmonaut at her next professional science meeting thing of the scientists? You agree? I'm in the right, right? I mean, I'm clearly.
You could do that. The other one is you could just go back to being CIA, but this time what you are is a person, and this is an actual department.
Ooh.
They have one that does this. You're a writer. If you write something and you're a former CIA employee and you want to publish a work that has even the slightest connection with what you did professionally, you have to vet it through this department at the CIA to make sure you have not disclosed any particularly sensitive information. So you have the writing tie-in. It's perfectly plausible. You could just,
like this. Oh, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to tell my wife the idea came from you. So otherwise, you and I aren't going to get to meet again. We are going to be totally. If I vanish, if you never hear from me again, it's because she saw this episode. But I'm okay. I like that, and I know what you're talking, because they always have to do that whenever there's a book that's coming out. They have to
What I love about it, because my father tried to write something to have it published, and somebody else tried to write something about some of his exploits and have them published. And both times when that information was submitted, they said, no, you can't publish this. This is giving out far too many details of things that we don't want to say. And then his former boss who was actually indicted for involvement during the Iran-Contra scandal and went to prison briefly for it. He published a book that had far more, just, names, places, times, frequencies, you name it. It was all in there. And nobody at CIA vetting office said anything about it. It was just, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So there's no logic to what happens. So
yeah.
you can just make up whatever BS you want, and it's valid.
That's good. And Sister Porpoise just said, a bribe of jewelry and a romantic trip to Paris, I think she thinks should smooth things over. I agree. Everybody wants to go to Paris with a CIA agent, so that would be perfect. So that's
far preferable than going to, say, Mogadishu with the CIA.
Yeah, I would think.
I've been there. It's not a very fun town.
Oh, dear Lord. I was going to ask you something about that, but now my brain is in neutral. So my youngest tested positive for COVID for what I think is probably the 4th or 5th time. We actually don't think she's got it. We're all kind of sick. All of us tested negative, and she's had 2 tests since then and been negative. But I think some of this is I'm definitely under the weather. But it's psychosomatic now on top of that, where I'm just like, oh God, it's my 6th COVID or whatever. I'm negative. Everybody else is negative. She's tested negative twice since then, and the sample was contaminated. We knew it was contaminated, but we figured would finish the test and positive. Okay, so, but yeah, holy shit, I need to get over all of this shit. But what was the oh dear Lord, I was going to ask you about something else. I don't remember. A couple days ago, it was actually yesterday, I think. I went on a show. It's called The Shills, and they were sweethearts. They were really nice, and I've known the guy who I think runs it. He's the front man. I don't know if he runs it or is just sort of the front man, but he seems to at least have the biggest voice, I should say. And I've known kind of vaguely who he is for a while. We ran in the same circles. He reminded me right when we started the show that their producer was actually our producer for, I want to say, about a year. And unfortunately, he died suddenly. I missed the hell out of him, but it was just a little weird to suddenly be in that frame set and mindset and all that other stuff. But I did a show with them yesterday, and it was about Ukraine, and they had on a Ukrainian streaming from Ukraine, and that was interesting. That was really interesting, and they asked him a lot of questions. They gave me a lot of leeway to ask questions, which was great. And the first one I asked was I said, okay, because I'm sitting there going I'm going to get to hopefully get straight up legit answers. So I said, okay, what's your view of the U.S. in light of the Budapest Accords? And I explained it I'm not explaining right now what the Budapest Accords were. I know most of our audience probably knows, but it's basically they gave up their nuclear weapons, which they probably couldn't have used. But when Ukraine declared independence in 1991, all of a sudden they're a nuclear power because they have all of Russia's they have a whole bunch of nuclear weapons from Russia. I think it's thousands of warheads and intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they've got them all. So, I mean, starting just right out of the gate, they're a nuclear power country. Obviously, because of the nuclear proliferation treaty trying to reduce as many countries as possible, we negotiated very strongly, get them to surrender all of those to the Russians. There was a question as to whether they could have actually used them even if they wanted to, but presumably it would have been a deterrence against invasion. Russia says, we promise never to invade. Yeah, a deal like that is worth the ruble it's printed on. But they promise never to invade.
No, because you can use a ruble to at least wipe your ass.
Yeah. Good point. It's about all they're good for. Oh, my God. Anyways, so... And then now it doesn't say we are going to help them. It said that we were going to, I forget what the word was, not security assurances, but security, and it was stronger than support, but not quite as strong as guarantees. And they took it to mean that we would defend them if they were ever invaded. It clearly, doesn't explicitly say that. And it looked to me, as a guy who's read many of these, that they explicitly avoided saying that, which should have tipped off the Ukrainians. So I don't know why. But I asked him, I said, so how do they feel? And he seemed really honest about it. I mean, what you hear from Zelensky, and with a good deal of frustration, you hear how thankful he is that Americans are giving him the support and that other countries are supporting him. But I wanted to know, how do they feel because of the Budapest Accords? And he said, we feel betrayed. We feel betrayed by the U.S. We feel betrayed by the U.K. And it was really nice to hear that level of honesty and to actually just be able to talk to someone who was over there. And I'd feel that way too. And he was also honest about the fact it wasn't clear. And he was just like, look, that, it wasn't clear that the U.S. had to come in, but we expected that they would, and, there's this huge feeling of betrayal. So anyways, I got to talk to a Ukrainian yesterday. It was good.
The accords were crafted, at least on our part, with the express understanding that a former member of the Soviet bloc would not understand the nuances of the legalese and all the little ins and outs that were in there. So it sounded like we were being great to achieve our ends of getting them to give the stuff up and calm things down. At the same time, we deliberately wrote it that way to ensure that we couldn't be held accountable for not honoring what they perceived as our guarantees.
Well, I imagine, I'm curious to know also, I mean, I assume the original was written in English, but the question is, how does it translate into Ukrainian? Especially because the nuance and the differences in words there, and you take one look at it, I was just like, okay, there's a sort of it purports to suggest that, will really help if something heads south. I was like, but it absolutely doesn't say it. And I was just like, that's never an accident. That is, oh dear Lord. So, so that was fun. Then the other one,
I just got laid. Did you see that happen on?
I did. I wouldn't be bragging about getting laid so quickly, but you do you. I also would like to point out that, speaking of treaties and Geneva Conventions and war crimes, that shirt. I just want you to know, when I think of war crimes, that shirt was the first thought to come into my mind.
You think this is bad? You should have seen the one we gave my dad to wear.
Oh, I would like to see that. That would be,
I used to run with a group that every year would have a Hawaiian party theme kind of thing. And one of the things they did at the party was the bad Hawaiian shirt contest. And the person who could find the most appallingly garish Hawaiian shirt to wear would win some big fancy ass prize, 16-year-old bottle of scotch or something like that. Yeah, no, I mean real prizes.
I was probably still in college. No, I think I had my license, so I had to be out of college. So I don't know why I may have been subbing while I was writing my first book. So I was substitute teaching, and that must have been it. Okay, so I'm substitute teaching. And I come in, and I'm in the middle of teaching a class, and it goes over my head that it's Hawaiian Day. And then one of the other teachers, who I honestly didn't get along with great. And I think she was kind of trying to get along with me, so she was making an effort. And she's just like, "Oh, Nick, have you been laid this morning?" And I was just like, right in front of the kids, right in front of but they're all wearing, and I was just like,
what?
No, I'm good. Thank you. It's like, is that an offer? I don't understand what the hell this is. So it's initial shock, and then kind of outraged, because I already didn't like this woman, and I was like, what the fuck is she to ask a question like that in the middle of my class? Subbing is hard enough as it is. I had a pretty good reputation.
All these kids.
Yeah. So I go to the department head, not the department head, sorry, the assistant principal for our department.
No.
Yes,
Oh, no.
yes. And I finally, and I'm working myself up, right? I've had a couple frappuccinos. I'm like
Whoa,
a little,
look at
yeah.
me. I am an ignoramus.
So I go in and I am just like, this is one of the most unprofessional, and it's just like, I'm going on. And to his credit, he just let me go, and he's not smiling. He's just listening. He's just listening. And then maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and he must have had better things to do. I think he was just enjoying it. He lets me go. And he goes, Nick? I said, yeah. He goes, you're aware that it's Hawaiian Day today, right? I was just like, what the fuck is that got to... I was like, just like, why are you changing the subject? And he's just like, well, do you know what this is? And he holds up a lei, and he holds it up, and then click. And I was just like, oh. In my mind, I'm like, oh, fuck. I was just like, oh, shit. It's like, and besides, this is my lunch hour. I could be doing something. I was just like, and so now, again, the creative writing kicks in, and I'm just like, okay, I have to extricate myself from this with some dignity. So I'm just like, well, that would change things. He's like, you think maybe that's what she meant? I was like, I'm reasonably confident that's what she meant. Thank you very much for your time. And I just turned around and walked, as I'm walking out. This actually was probably not. This was, I was like, okay, I get what I'm walking out. As I believe he goes, oh, Nick, by the way. I said, yeah. I turn around and he goes, you been laid yet? I was like, oh, fucking son of a bitch. So that was it. That was a good guy. I really like the guy, but. Oh, can I get a sound check from you? Oh, no, there we go. You laughed. Like I said, every now and then I'm going to ask you for a sound check. It's just to get a quick yeah, yes, no, anything.
Oh, no.
We'll stop that sound. All right. So, and there's Amy Newman. Amy is gracing us with her presence. Thank you so much. We just had our 200 sub thing, and I was tired for that too, so I bailed a little early. But Amy was a real sweetheart about it. She's got a channel, Midnight Ranting, and I like to go down there because I'm usually up around that period of time, and the only ones who are streaming will have me. So I come down, and oh, she's hilarious. So she used to work as a comedian, so it comes through. You notice, and so I was down there. She was saying hi to everyone. Oh, there's Nick. She's like, yeah, we'll talk about him in a minute. I was like, uh-oh, what I do now? And and then that's it. They just ranted about the show for like 5 or 10 minutes, telling people to go sub, and they helped push us over the top, which was really nice. So I'm thrilled to see Amy. There she is. But that was a really nice. That made my day. That was just like they were sweet about that. They didn't have to do that, so it was awfully nice of them. And I always make fun of their producer, but having said that, he starts with sound on more often than our producer, so not much I can do about that. So, and then the other, this just came in right before we went live. Mississippi. There was a ruling in Mississippi, and I thought you'd be interested in this. I actually was curious. I was going to ask you, this could easily branch off in like 3 or 4 different topics. I wanted to ask you what you saw of, a lot of people are talking about white supremacists in the military. And one of the things that I heard, which I thought was interesting, it kind of fed my stereotypes of the military, but I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if you had a thought on it, but I heard a few things. One, that there's been an actual big effort by white nationalists to infiltrate the military, that they've had more success than more people are willing to admit, especially in the Army. It's been harder in the Marines for any number of reasons, including the training on the idea that you're there to defend not the President of the United States, but the Constitution of the United States, and that the sort of the more elite units, probably it's not as big a deal, but in some of them there's been significant infiltration. But so I did want to ask you about that. But so what this was there's a law. Oh dear Lord. So I guess actually I think it was in the so they rewrote their constitution in the early 1800s. I think it was early 1800s. And when they did, the writers wrote. Oh dear Lord, where'd this go? Something. Oh yeah, we have to. Oh my God! Now I just lost it. It was an appalling. Here it is. So this was the right after Reconstruction, and as we've talked about this before, but basically what they did, and it was unfortunately it was brilliant. But what they essentially did was they said anyone in prison could be made could be forced to work. So if you're in prison, you could be doing forced labor, and then they made all sorts of things illegal that black people were either going to, they were newly emancipated. They didn't necessarily know the laws. They hadn't been. So anything that they were likely to do that might violate the law.
Continuation of slavery by another name.
Yep. So they made it completely legal, and people would, you'd arrest them for whatever. You'd throw, and they would, as somebody was as, I forget what was one of the really egregious ones. There was something along the lines of you had to have an ID with you at all times. I don't think it was that exact thing. It was something very close to that. You had to have an ID with you at all times. So what they would do is, when somebody was let out of prison, they would meet him literally at the front gates of the prison. And as he's coming out, they would say, "Oh, you got a driver's license on you." He's been in prison for 4 years. The answer to that is no. So they say, "Oh, you don't have a driver's license on you. You're required to have a driver's license." Well, that's interesting. You ever been in jail before? Literally walking out of a jail. So you're an ex-con who doesn't have a license, so you've just broken another law. Guess what, buddy? You're going back to jail. And they would do this, and then they'd have you do. And then some of these people would. The old plantations were converted into whatever industrialized thing they were doing, and they'd have the same descendants of the same people who were slaves there, working there as prisoners. So, anyways, as they were writing it, the legislative committee that was drafting, it was the 1890 Constitution, said they adopted a resolution declaring, quote, "It is the duty of this committee to perform its work in such a manner as to secure permanent white rule in all departments of state government, and without due violence to the true principles of our republican system of government." This law was designed to was put in at the same time, and was basically, it was the Jim Crow laws. It said you were not allowed to vote if you violated any of these crimes, and most of those crimes were at the time considered black crimes, and if you were white and did it, you'd still somehow manage to vote, which was interesting. So
it's a combination of laws which are specifically targeted at one group, and then very selective reinforcement of said laws to ensure that only the targeted group is ever affected by them.
Yeah. Well, this law that barred voting for people who had committed these crimes went up before the Fifth Circuit, I think it was, and was upheld. So the law is just, and the governor of Mississippi came out. And I know you'll be glad to hear, with all of our audience, he came out and said there is no such thing as institutionalized racism. This law is no longer a problem. And he acknowledged that it was, in fact, laden with racist intent, but none of it actually is practiced or matters anymore. So he's thrilled. Yeah. So you've seen that there's been some controversy over especially on Fox News, which I do on occasion watch. I used to watch it more. I've lost my ability to not get frustrated or enraged by it. 10 years ago, I watched it reasonably regularly, and I loved watching it because I'd watch it, and then I was like, oh, this is what the people I'm arguing with are listening to. It's like, now I understand their arguments a shit ton better. No. It was
Fox
eye-opening.
News is Joseph Goebbels trumpeting lies over the radio, which good, loyal Nazis will trumpet back in public. It's the same service.
It's a little scary, and it was. I can't believe what was it that Biden said today. He essentially called him a Nazi. Let's see, what we're seeing now.
Dispute that in the slightest.
Yeah, well, it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, and one of my concerns about throwing it around so much is then when you need to throw it around, this is as close as I've ever seen. Nobody's, because they're all calling, and apparently the left are Nazis, and everybody's a Nazi nowadays. It's the bar for being a Nazi is awfully low. But so what we're seeing now is either the beginning of the death knell of either the beginning or the death knell of an extreme MAGA philosophy. It's not just Trump. It's the entire philosophy that underpins I'm going to say something like it's semi-fascism. And,
I totally agree. I mean, and I've heard them say, oh no, the left are the Nazis. And I'm going, well, when was the last time you saw the left rounding up huge numbers of people for committing no crime, throwing them in prison essentially without trials, and then reprocessing them in a constant cycle to keep them in prison so that they will not vote? It's an institutionalized form of racism. Therefore, in effect, it's Nazism. It's just not targeted at Jews necessarily or specifically. It's targeted at other people that they don't like. And that, to me, is the other frightening part of it, is the people they don't like. The list is like this. It just goes on and on and on. And it's mind-boggling to me that they think they have this huge following in the country when basically everybody is on their shit list except this tiny, 20% sliver of the population, and even some of those people in that 20% can't abide them. So, we don't want to have representative democracy. We don't want people to have a say in their fate. We are going to decide for you, and if you don't like it, we're going to kill you. That's today's right, in a nutshell.
Yeah. That's what it looks like from where I'm sitting. One of the things I'm also most
Sherlock.
Well, I've always been it was funny because in high school I was called unreasonably reasonable, and then somebody started that back up again on Twitter. Actually, it never crossed my mind that could have been somebody that was actually knew me from high school. Now that I think about it, because it's like with the anonymity on. But somebody started calling me like, "Yeah, you're unreasonably reasonable," and it is true. And I can get myself and sometimes people around me in trouble for an excess of trying to be reasonable. But I'm the last one to come. I was the last one I know to come on board with. Yeah, it was an insurrection. It was an insurrection. But you have to, before I'm going to say that, you have to really sell me on. There's no reasonable way to say it was anything else, and it took me a little while to get there. But I'm there.
Well, you could make an argument it was an attempted coup, but that's still insurrection to me.
It's still yeah, exactly. But I'm going to be completely honest here. Yes, absolutely. On occasion, I'm sitting there going, wouldn't this country be so much better if there was an IQ test for voting? It's just like, I mean, really? And there's this part
who gets to write the test, who gets to administer the test, who gets to grade the test. And if you live in certain areas of the country, it becomes a self-selecting process to ensure that, oh yes, we're the only ones that get to vote.
And I'm keenly aware that while, that's a pretty self-serving criteria because I'm a reasonably smart guy, but I know people who are smarter than me. And what happens when they say, Nick, we had set it at 100, right? And then we're going to start at 80, right? You got to be at 80 IQ or higher, which seems almost reasonable, right? I mean, it's like that's still, if the average IQ is 100, and then even people who are below average, we're just saying people who are so below average that they really can't make, great decisions. Anyone below 80. Then you say, well, okay, but if we raise that to 100, imagine how cool things would be. So we raise it to 100, right? And then we say, well, listen, really, the guys at 120 are the ones who know what's going on. So let's set the bar to 120. So the second you make any of those kinds of things, I may be able to make the first number of hurdles, but I am well aware of the fact that you can make IQ a specific set IQ, a bar for voting, and eventually that bar will go over my head. It absolutely will. There'll be the 1% that are going to sit there and say, you have to be genius level IQ to vote, Nick. Sorry, what?
Well, I look at it from the other side of that same equation, which is I know people who are well on the spectrum and would probably have difficulty passing some of these tests. At the same time, and this sounds contrived to say it in this way, but bear with me, they're not idiots. They're people that know right from wrong. They're people that know what they want, and they can make informed, rational decisions. Why should they not be allowed to have some say in the way their community, their country is run. Yeah, at some point, you have to say you either include everybody or you exclude everybody. Those are the two ends of the spectrum of how you're going to manage this. You draw the line somewhere, but people will inevitably, it is the human nature that we're dealing with here, people will inevitably draw that line in such a way that it benefits them personally at the expense of somebody else. And I don't think that's right.
My first really good autistic friend that I ever had, I was kind of protective of the guy, and in a way that probably he would have found offensive. He never said it was offensive, and he never gave me a hard time about it. But looking back on it, I was just like, ooh. But I was kind of protective of the guy, and what really struck me was once there was this kind of very complicated interpolitics going on between me and a whole bunch of other people, and he was right smack dab in the middle, which he hated. But I was talking to him on the phone afterwards, and I said, well, it's X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. He goes, no, Nick, it's ABC. And I was just like, that can't be, holy shit, he's right. And it's just like, yeah, this is what you missed. You missed this, 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 and this. And 2 weeks ago, he couldn't have done it. And now he's got his head around this better than I do. And what I realized was, I don't want to say slow because of all the implications, but what I realized was it took him longer to process information.
Yeah, people processed information at different speeds.
Yeah, but once he had it, he understood things 10 times better than I did. And all this time I thought I was protecting his ass. He was protecting mine because he was outwitting everybody. And I'm sitting there going like, holy shit. And it absolutely took him longer to figure out what was going on around him. But once he figured it out, he understood it 10 times better than everybody else. Like, okay, so this is a different, and that's the kind of guy I do want voting. And so yeah, I don't, but what I've noticed is, and what I'm most proud of on the left, I did get into this argument about criminals voting. I was like, no, criminals have to have the right to vote too.
I usually can't read the text column that spools up here, but somebody wrote, and this, for some reason, this one is actually legible for me. It says, intelligence is not what we should be screening for. It's empathy. 1,000% correct.
That's Bregwin. And I think I think empathy is a much better criteria. And I'm just immensely proud of the fact that, and I am not a Democrat. I'm an independent. I am a liberal. I am really proud of the fact that my side, it has been for a very long time arguing the best it possibly can to expand voting rights. And even when people on the left say we should make intelligence our education, I was like, if you think that's true, if you really think we should, the education that you got, go back and get your money back. Go back and get your money back, because if you've gotten an education and you think that any bar, like intelligence or education, that you think you clear, you think you're going to be okay with that, and you think that's going to work out in your favor, you're not educated. You haven't studied history, and you know nothing about how this shit works in reality.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh, so, I don't, let's see, what was it? Okay, so it was well, you had said this on a show earlier, and you said this, when we were talking about it earlier too, but you had said this, I think, on one of the previous shows, and when we had Zandring on, that, we're in a Cold War. We're currently, not a Cold War, Jesus. We're in a civil war. It's just nobody started shooting yet. So it's a cold civil war. And the whole, it's, and you guys had said, and I like the way you put this, because it's a nuanced way to put it, which is that there's no off-ramp that anyone can see. I remember when I was a kid being freaked out by nuclear weapons and all this. I mean, I was growing up in the 80s, so it's like everyone has to build a bomb shelter, and everybody was keenly aware of the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that other good stuff. And, I was like, well, we could all die in any second. He goes, well, that's always true. This is what my dad said. That's always true. But he's like, the reality is, when people talk about the economy going under, or people talk about a country failing, they do fail. It does happen. But it happens far less frequently than it should, given how terrible things are most of the time, and everything's going to hell in a handbasket. But in the end, most of the time, people realize it's in their best interest that the ship stay afloat. And so yeah, people are robbing each other blind, and then there's but it's the only time you really got to worry, which is, by the way, what's happening now, goes when you get people who are so delusional about what the state of things really is and how interdependent they are on each other. When that fails, then you've got a problem. But the rest of the time, everybody's keenly aware. You may hate everybody else on the ship with you, but if you sink the ship, you all go down. So it's really hard to actually get a full-blown corporation to go bankrupt, a full-blown country to just be dissolved. It happens, but it's harder than people think. So I always try to remember that when I think about where we are now. But I also remember that it's like, yeah, the exception was when they're in denial. Because the exception is when everybody's in fantasy land. Because that's when they underestimate how upset everybody else really is. And what was I think you know this. I have no doubt better than I. But what was the percentage of Americans who were actually behind the Revolutionary War? I think it was less than it was about 10% or somewhere in there that actually. And I mean, there was yeah.
Initially, it was somewhere. And I'm going off a real hazy memory here, but I think initially it was somewhere between 10 to 15%. The key that made that 10% or 15% matter is that they were the ones with the money. They were the ones in the positions of, to some extent, power. So they were able to influence public opinion because they owned the newspapers and say, hey, we shouldn't be having to pay taxes when we can't have any say on paying said taxes. Well, your average Bubba out on some farm in the Ohio Valley, he didn't pay taxes. Let's be honest. There was no little red-coated tax collector going through every year. Oh, fill the bin. It was the merchants, the lawyers, those kind of people in the plantation owners in the big cities, in the large, well-settled agricultural areas that were most upset by these changes in the tax structure and most impacted by it. And they were able to sway public opinion through various forms of writing and speech giving and so forth, and get people to start seeing their side of the equation. So, I look at it from the other standpoint that's just very similar, which is with slavery in the Deep South at the start of the Civil War. I'll get the exact figures wrong, but these are close enough, is that something like less than 20% of this population below the Mason-Dixon line owned slaves. And of that 20%, less than 20% of them owned more than one slave. So basically, the entire Civil War is really fought about the property rights of the 1% in the Deep South. That's what the whole thing is really over. All those hundreds of thousands of people being killed because some rich bastard who could easily afford to free his slavers and still keep them effectively in bondage to him through indentured servitude or whatever, didn't want to give up on that right. That's really what it all boiled down to. And I think in some ways that's where we are today, is certain oligarchs with huge, unbelievable amounts of money in all their secret bank offshore accounts and everything don't want to have to pay one more red penny of their tax than they have to. And so they're shaping that public opinion and telling people who actually benefit in many cases from the things that are being proposed by the left, that this is bad for you because that guy over there, and we all know who he is, he's going to get a better life. We can't have that. And what it really boils down to, you got a lot of really gullible morons out there who get led around by their cheek.
Well, we all do when it comes to certain things, is the thing I try to remember. I think
yeah,
you're absolutely right. I'm not going to, but I'm the most skeptical person you'll ever meet when it comes to some things, and the most gullible person you'll ever meet when it comes to others. But this is one of them where, yeah. So, Oh dear Lord, my concentration, like I'm losing trains of thought, because I wanted to ask you a question about the that sort of 1%, and I had remembered a study done on how that so-called 1% and where they influence and how that influence comes in. But yeah, it wasn't going to be from adaptability. The sense of entitlement that somebody can get when they're that rich, and the idea that they really do need to be and have earned being treated differently, which Trump is absolutely. You had said that last time, and I was thinking about that, which is where Trump really is just like, wait a minute, he's well aware that these are violations of the law. What really shocks him is that anybody thinks that he's capable of breaking the law. Yeah. Secret passages under Mar-a-Lago. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think? I have no doubt Titan's going to be like, I thought of that. I'm sure he did. I'm just like, when I saw there was like a secret passage under Mar-a-Lago, I was like, of course there was. Of course there was. I'm not even surprised. I'm just like, I'm kicking myself for not having thought about it earlier.
So I'm not positive on this, but I've heard Mar-a-Lago originally was a mansion that was built and owned by some huge narco lord. And it was seized by the U.S. government as part of, his arrest. And that's one of the things they do is when you arrest somebody for drug trafficking, and literally everything they own is forfeited. Yeah. And so they sold it for like, a dime on the dollar kind of thing, put it up for auction. And that's how the Orange Shit-Gibbon acquired it, is buying it from government auction. It does not surprise me in the least that a palace for some narco overlord has secret passages and hidden rooms, and hell, there's probably the equivalent of a hidden wine cellar for cocaine down in the depths of the place.
Yeah, hidden coke cutting floor. Jeez, yeah. Well, it's apparently the plans for Mar-a-Lago are public, and somebody pointed out that you could go down to the clerk's office and pick up the plans, and you'd see that there in fact was a tunnel there, which okay, that's fine, and it's not a crime to have a tunnel. But it's like when you've got what he's got in there. Frankly, if I were rich and famous, I would probably want a tunnel wherever I live too, because it's sort of like, okay, he's got Rudy Giuliani coming in. Purportedly, this is what we're hearing, is that Rudy Giuliani, after losing the presidential election, not even getting what is it? I think he got one delegate, and that was it. And after And then after that, he just, he apparently, purportedly, got into became a raging alcoholic and was trying to sober up, and he was sobering up at Mar-a-Lago, but he didn't want anyone to know that he was going through this, which makes sense. I completely get that, and I think I'm not going to sit here and say the rich and famous, have it terrible. I'd rather be rich and famous and wealthy than dirt poor in this country and starving to death. They're doing all right, but I do understand the lack of privacy, and I understand why. Okay, so he wants to sober up and he doesn't want anyone to know about it. So apparently he spent a month at Mar-a-Lago, but the way he got in and out was through this tunnel. But it's sort of like, yeah, okay, but now what else is going in and out through this tunnel? And you had said, oh, dear Lord, this is the one. And we keep on our Discord a pretty comprehensive number of news channels that we just have all the news on, various things. And I was going through and I had missed this. And this was from over a month ago, but Ivana Trump, who died falling down the stairs, she was, I think, 70 some odd years old, was buried at his golf resort. And I was just sitting there going, okay, that's a little tacky, but okay. But it turns out the reason he did it, and I don't like to just go out there and say, well, the reason he did it, but he already had the taxes lined up. He had the whole thing lined up. The second she was buried there, He had the golf course declared a cemetery. Once it was declared a cemetery, he didn't have to pay business taxes. He didn't have to pay the land tax, which this is in New Jersey. That land taxes are where they get most of their income, and it's land taxes on casinos, courts, golf courses, and stuff like that. So his biggest tax headaches gone by burying his ex-wife, the mother of 2 of his children, at the golf course, which is, I'm a writer, I don't have the fucking words for it. I don't know holy shit. Yeah, that's Bregwin posts like 90% of what's on there, and I'd seen that, and I was just like, how did this get through? So, but there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah, the moment I read the reports that he had buried her there, I was like, there has to be some sort of tax fraud thing going on here. Well, it's not fraud, but it's a scheme to dodge taxes, probably legally. But it's just bothers me that people like that can think that way first and foremost before anything else. And that if you or I tried to do something similar of burying grandma on my property to avoid paying taxes, I'd get hit with 10,000 injunctions.
Yeah.
Big rich man. Oh no, we can't hold him accountable.
Well, I think it's very hard to see how he's gonna get out of this. My wife says, like, no, he'll get out of it. He always gets out of it. I was like, yeah, everybody always does until they don't anymore. I mean, they got Al Capone just on his taxes, but they got him nonetheless. But Bregwin just pointed something out, and you had said this earlier too, which I hadn't realized. I didn't realize she was cremated. So Bregwin says, quote, also, who buries cremated ashes in a giant coffin that requires 10 people to carry, and they could barely carry it?
There's nothing else in there. It's just a giant gold lead-lined coffin because he loved her so much.
Yeah, well, we know how he treats gold. His toilet is made out of gold, so I don't...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I don't... I can't... He's been going off on Truth Social a lot over the last 8 hours, and it's... somebody pointed out, and I think they're right, which is that he looks like he's starting to become unhinged, which for Trump is a different bar than for most people.
A huge
yeah. So, but
I would argue he was pretty much unhinged at least 2 years ago, if not much more.
Yeah. Well, he's I loved it. There was a great picture of former Clinton supporter and friend of who's the guy who had the island, the liberal, that's on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, we know who it is. He's the guy who I guess had the underage prostitutes, and it's implicated all these people. I'll wait until somebody's gonna drop it in the live chat, and I'll finish that one when that comes in. But yeah, I mean, my take on it, I was when the letter got dropped that was from the National Archives, that was the May 10th or May 11th letter that said, listen, enough delays, we're handing this material over to the FBI. We've been requested by the Biden administration to send it over. The Justice Department needs it, and other intelligence agencies. I was like, okay, that's no such agency there. And then like, okay, executive privilege does not apply for the following reasons. And it sounded, Epstein, that was it, Epstein, okay, yeah. So I got this great meme that says, former, a friend of Epstein and Clinton supporter, in trouble with the law, and it shows Mar-a-Lago, because it's, of course, he did know Epstein and he did support Bill Clinton. So it's context. So what was my brain is completely in neutral. Right before that, what was I talking about like 30 seconds ago before I like Epstein again? Oh, Trump, whether Trump's going to get into trouble or not. He's I took the letter.
I need to acquire a new chair. My chair just collapsed.
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah, it saw the shirt and it chose death, I think is what I'm going to say.
My chair suicided. As well it should, as well it should.
Well, so, oh, dear Lord. Oh, yeah. I took the letter from...
Oh, go.
And you had already told me about that dog, but I do want to talk about him at some point tonight. Maybe getting a little late to do it, but
no, I've got two of them here. I'll bore you by showing them to you. Come here, puppy.
That's not a bore.
So that's the big one.
Oh my God, she's gorgeous.
And that's him. And this little one here, that's her.
Is that a husky breed or what? You know what? If I can look at the bigger monitor.
They're both Malamutes.
Oh, okay.
They're both Malamutes. And they're rescues. And we rescued them when their former owner passed away. And the pound was going to farm them out to different families. And the big guy actually injured himself trying to rip through the chain link fence to protect the small dog. So they said, no, we got to keep these two together. So they turned him over to the Washington State Malamute Rescue Alliance. And we saw them and we said, yes, we will take them, because our previous Malamute had passed away just, a couple months before that and needed a new Malamute.
We've got a dog named Jake, and Jake is an extraordinarily intelligent dog, and I love this dog, but I will confess I haven't bonded with him as much as I'd like to, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. But our dog prior to that, his name was Dexter, and I hated dogs most of my life. They always slobber on you, they always jump on you, they have no self-control, they're just they're just this shy of wild animals. And so I've never liked dogs. I was always a cat person. My wife really wanted a dog. She'd had a dog growing up, and she was just like, don't worry, I'll be the one who takes care of it, and yada, yada, yada. I am the guy who stays at home for 14 days straight, not leaving once, working on the computer, banging out books, short stories, whatever. She's off in a lab somewhere. Yeah, she's going to be the one taking care of it. Okay. But finally, I said, okay, we'll get one. So we got Dexter, and he was a little black lab puppy, and oh my God, he was impossible to not love. But I was just like, remember, it's a dog. They slobber, they jump, they're uncontrollable. And I said, okay, I've got some time. I might as well take the time, learn how to train him, and I'm going to train him well, because you know what, and I always hated going over to my friend's house, and the dog was out of control, and all this other stuff. And I started seeing dogs that were really well trained. And I was just like, wait, how do you do? That's not a dog. It's like, it's not acting like what I've seen as dogs. It's like, that's a, and I looked and I was just like, okay, the dogs can't be happy that way. They can't really be happy. And what I realized was they were happier than the other kinds of dogs. And when you study, dogs came from wolves, and they were the wolves that figured out that if they found a way to serve people, they could be taken care of, and they could have their needs met. And so they essentially coexist with human beings, and they don't do well if they're not given structure, and they don't do well if they're not given some form of authority. They actually like it, and they're smart enough to realize that the world is complicated in a way that they don't get. And so
everybody.
Hi there. Oh, he is beautiful.
That's the big guy. That's Nico. He's 165 pounds.
Jesus. Yeah, he'd better be trained at that weight. Holy shit.
Well, actually, he's not the one who's trained. We're the ones who are trained. He trained us.
There's a lot of that, too.
People who have Malamutes will tell you that's the way it works. The Malamute doesn't get trained. He lets you know what he would prefer you do and encourages you gently over a course of months to learn how to do what he wants you to do. And that's the way it's worked.
Well, long story short, I am now a dog person. I learned how to train this dog. I went 4 hours a day, 5 days a week in these backwoods. I think I told you that story, that the dog ended up getting deposed for that one, but that's a whole other story. Like the lawyer called up wanting to depose my dog. I was like, "You're going to put him on the stand?" He's like, "If I can." I was like, "Okay." He's not that well trained, but it's like, yeah, "Okay, you're the guy who's got to prosecute the case. So whatever you got to do."
You're a dime, dude.
Yeah. It's like, okay, sure, yes, you can depose my dog, but he charges $150 an hour as an expert witness. I'm just saying. So, anyways, that dog became a part of me. A very huge part of my existence was working with the dog every day and doing training. And it was when he died, that was I had a very hard time with that. With that. So, it's a little. First of all, it's a little weird.
Pets really do become pets really do become members of your family.
Yeah.
And the emotional investment, the emotional ties, whatever you want to call it, that you have with that creature are profound.
Well, and they want to be a member of the family. I mean, the domesticated animals, cats, dogs, they want to be a member of the family, and it's like, and especially if you've got kids who see that animal as a member of the family. So it's it was. So that's it. I am now a dog person. I do hate a lot of owners, though. I like dogs. hate a lot of owners.
Who doesn't?
So,
So that must mean you really love Trump because he doesn't own a dog.
Oh, it's not only he doesn't own a dog, but he said that thing about Afghanistan. It's just like Afghanistan, first of all, he's criticizing how quickly everybody left Afghanistan. I was just like, oh, yeah, he may have a point. Who organized that deal? Who set that one out? I'm trying to remember. Some former president of the United States. I don't remember who it was. Yeah, it was executed under Biden's watch, but he wasn't the one who made that deal. Probably would have done something similar anyway, I will admit, but he wasn't the one who did that. So you don't get to sit there and be the guy who orchestrated that entire thing quite deliberately and then say it was no, that was Trump. But he came out and said, they left.
That's crapping in the middle of the dining room table just before Thanksgiving dinner and then complaining that the room smells funny.
Yeah, absolutely. So he came out and was talking about how badly it was done. They actually left the lights on. Did you know that? They left the lights on when they left. And I was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he's like, well, and then they even left the dogs, right? They left dogs. Dogs were just left there, and Afghan, they don't like dogs. They don't like dogs in Afghanistan. And I was just like, oh, for fuck's sake. I really liked it so much better when he wasn't talking.
Which is very, very rare.
Well, there was a brief period there after he was out for a little while where he wasn't talking a whole hell of a lot, but he's back, and somebody had said that this last the August 13th votes showed that he still has a stranglehold on the Republican Party, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. But the fact that memo from May 11th reads the way it does, and that I take that as whoever wrote that should first of all be a diplomat. It was an extraordinarily clear go fuck yourself 7 ways till Sunday, while still maintaining the dignity of whoever's in charge of the records department. And they're just like, look, this is nothing but a delay tactic. You've lost on every front. We will be handing these records over to the FBI and other intelligence agencies that are interested in these records. The claim of executive privilege doesn't hold for the following reasons. We talked to several lawyers, attorneys general, and they all conclude you can't do it, especially since you're withholding documents needed by the current administration. And executive privilege really is for a privilege of documents that are meant to be seen by another branch of government, either the judicial or Congress. And this is the executive branch. They own these documents. So, that's where they're going. And
executive privilege. You're no longer the executive. You no longer have that privilege.
Yeah, and it turns out, and you don't have the privilege to have classified documents in your pool room.
Private possession.
Yeah, But that notwithstanding, the fact that that came out and the fact that these documents are becoming unsealed, and they decided earlier today a judge has ordered the unsealing of the affidavit that was used as probable cause for the warrant. And that's what we all want to see, because purportedly that is an intelligence source. That's a live human being who saw these documents and turned it over. Now it's going to appear redacted, which I think is a very good thing. We don't want to reveal who it was who did it. Melania, sorry. Oh, sorry. Was that? Yeah. I totally see Melania just being like, oh, fuck it, he's got classified documents. That's because she's actually really intelligent. I totally see her. You had said earlier it's Secret Service. I have no doubt you're right, but I would just love it if, Melania Trump is the key witness. That's.
Oh, yeah.
So they're releasing that tomorrow. I read that document from the National Archives, and I took that to say the government as a whole has just not Republicans in the government, so not half the Senate and not half, but the government institutions have had about as much as they're going to take of this guy, and it's clear to me Garland is not fucking around. Now, we did get that memo from Barr, who I liked Barr because he apparently stood up to Trump and said, you can't do these things. But it turns out the memo from Barr was, well, we can't prosecute him on the Russian collusion thing. He's like, oh yeah, well, no, it's clear he's guilty of all this stuff, but we can't prosecute him because he got away with it, and it's not obstruction of justice if you get away with it. It's like, what? But it looks to me like the people who work at the institutions at all levels have about had all of Trump that they're going to tolerate. So my hope is that this is the dam is breaking. The water is now it's over at the cracks. The water is just coming through the cracks, and you're going to start to see, I hope, and I suspect. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if within the next year the IRS finishes their audit and finds that they're going after him. My hope is that the Southern District in New York finally gets some balls. I can't believe I have to say the Southern District gets some balls. These are the guys who put away the biggest mafia players in the country, and for whatever reason, they won't go after Trump. But I think that's what's happening. But I don't know. What do you?
I still hold. I still hold a sneaking suspicion that the things that is going to undo him is going to be Donnie Jr., Ivanka, or Kushner, Jared, turning state's evidence. And I think once you get that, the dam isn't just breached, it collapses and everything falls off. And I think that will be the decisive thing that's going to happen. And those people are so obsessively self-motivated that if they think there's even a chance, the slightest chance of them serving a day in jail, they'll throw him into the sewer. They don't really care. There's no loyalty within the family. It's all me.
I think Ivanka would do it, but I think she'd find another way to do it. I think she'd use Kushner to do it and should just give him whatever he needed and let him do it. I think he'd do it. I have no doubt he'd do it. Don Jr. strikes me as having fully drunk the Kool-Aid, and he reminds me of a little Gordon Gekko, right? That's Gordon Gekko right there. He's got the hair slicked back, and he's just, but I think that's a line he won't cross. I think he's been conditioned in some way or another. He isn't going to betray his father. He's a ride or die with his father.
Yeah, he's desperate for daddy's approval.
Yeah,
he's never actually had it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Kushner, but I think that's a really good observation. Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to. I mean, who knows? We may end up breaking tomorrow noon when this thing comes out. Well, it wouldn't shock me. If this isn't I think I told you this story before, and I'll probably wrap it up here. And I know you'll head to the Discord. I'm going to head to the Discord too. But anyone who wants to talk to Commander McMillan, he will be in the Discord. Within a couple minutes of the show going out, he'll be in the lounge chat. So, and then I'll join you guys there. But, you know, if you have any questions, please come on down or just say hi. But, actually, I lost my train of thought again. Dear Lord, we were talking Kushner, Trump. I was going to tell a story.
Fewer trains, more stations.
Oh, dear Lord, I completely, wow. Oh yeah, no, the height of it. I remember when we did, and I there's so many things I love doing about this show. I get to talk to people I would never otherwise get to talk to. You are a great example of that. I get to learn shit that there's no other way to learn, and I'm one of those guys. I just love learning. I love learning. there's something about realizing, okay, I know more than I did 5 minutes ago. I love that. Yeah. But I think probably on all the time that we've been doing this show, my probably favorite time was during when Iran had fired missiles into the green zone. They had hit a Marine barracks, if I recall. World War III was trending. Trump was, okay, we're going to bomb Iranian cultural sites. And I was like, okay, Mr. President, has someone explained to you yet that that's a war crime? Do you mind ixne or crime 𝗢𝗲𝗄𝐴? Just say it. It's okay to think these things, but acting on them.
Have you ever visited Holland? There's a town there called The Hague. You may want to get real familiar with the geography of the place if you go through with this plan.
Find the nearest Starbucks in The Hague. You're going to need it. Yeah. So, well, but what it was
McDonald's.
Yeah. Oh Jesus, no. Yeah. Oh my God. I miss the day when people sat there and said, what, the president had Grey Poupon on his fucking Tucker Carlson. I got this dual clip of him talking about
and that asshole doesn't eat anything but 5-star if he can get away with it.
Oh my, well,
he tries to present himself as this man of the people. No, you're not. You're an elitist snob.
He goes after Obama for putting Grey Poupon on his hamburger when he and that was the Wanda Sykes joke too. Holy shit, Wanda Sykes! I can't believe she said that. That I can't believe. Correspondence dinner. She goes, she's talking to Obama, who's president. She goes, you and Biden went and got a burger together? You just ditch the Secret Service, go get a burger together? Whose idea was that? Nancy Pelosi? She's like, oh, fuck. She did not just say
that. I like Wanda.
Oh, my God. She did not just say that. So, yeah. Dear Lord. So, but he got Grey Poupon on his hamburger when he went out to go get, and so Tucker Carlson's like, oh, well, the rest of us put ketchup and, this and that, but enjoy your burger, Mr. President. And he was doing that. And then when somebody gave Trump a hard time for having some kind of food, he's like, well, I think that if Trump decides he wants to have a fancy meal, do this and that, nobody should ever. So, you play those clips. Fox News it's not even fun anymore. It's not even fun anymore to find the clips of, there was the one of Kobe Bryant, and these, we've got that. And hold on a sec. That's going to be worth playing if I think that one's loaded. I should probably, it's not, it loses after a point. There's just so many examples of this. Where's the, I think we do have that, so let me find it. That was, okay, that's going to be, that's probably just going to be under Fox News, but I am so friggin' disorganized. Okay, this is all the police stuff. Yeah, there it is. Okay, here it is.
It's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
Well, he's allowed to have his view about what kneeling and the flag means to him. I mean, he's a person. He has some worth, I would imagine. I mean, this is beyond football, though. This is totalitarian conduct. This is Stalinist. And by the way, on the streets of New Orleans, we're looking at live pictures. They're shouting "F Drew Brees."
Wow.
That's what this moment has done to the beautiful team spirit of the New Orleans Saints.
He's a great Christian man.
Black guy stands up and protests, just dribble the ball. White sports athlete gets up and protests. He's a great Christian man. Okay. Could you just, could you guys just try? Could you pretend at least not to? Don't make it so easy. Like I said, it's not even fun anymore. It's like, I could load up 30 of these clips and I was just like, well, what's the point? I'm like loading 3 or 4. I was like, we all know. Yeah, we all know.
It's not worth it.
Yep. Tucker Carlson, what was it? Oh, dear Lord. He was, okay, so he was getting on, I don't, Tucker Carlson, that's it. I can say that and I have a laugh.
That was Osama bin Laden's biggest mistake. You don't crash your plane into the World Trade Center. You crash it into Fox News headquarters building. And right there, at least 50% of the country thinks you're the greatest people on the planet.
Yeah. Well, and the other 50% think you're a liberal. Yeah, that would have started a civil. Somebody would have come out and said it was the liberals who funded Osama bin Laden.
Oh, of course.
Oh, dear Lord. Well, what's the other real huge propaganda? Somebody say. I mean, there's the FBI is just a wing of the Democratic Party is one that's going on.
Oh,
but
yeah.
There's another big one that just came out where it's just a bold-faced lie, and the number of people running for office that have a credible shot of winning who are saying these things. It's and Marjorie Taylor Greene
plays to their base. Yeah, it plays to their base. They know it's bullshit. They don't care. All they know is they've got a gullible group of morons who will eat that shit up like, a cat goes after cream. It's just lap, 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 lap.
Okay, tell me about Mitch McConnell. I think he's basically the son of Satan. I think Satan, saw a turtle, was deeply, profoundly attracted to this turtle, and Mitch McConnell came out. That's what I think. That's my theory. Now,
what a horrible thing to say about turtles.
I know, and I feel very sorry for the turtle involved. But I've had a few people who've pointed out that they think that as cynical as he is, as evil as he is, and as much as I am also thinking that Trump must be sitting there saying, wouldn't it be nice if Merrick Garland were in another branch of office, like, say, the judicial branch? That would be really convenient right now, but at any rate. But that in the end, he is not one who wants, he is, cynical, Machiavellian, whatever you want to call him, but he doesn't, he's not willing to burn it all down to rule over the ashes, which Trump absolutely is, and so are any others on the right. And he's been recently coming out, and somebody said, aren't you glad that the Senate's going to flip? And he's just like, first of all, I think that there's a greater chance that the House is going to flip than the Senate. And somebody said, why is that? He said, because we don't have any good candidates. And I'm just like, okay, that's not something you normally say when you're the head of the party. Ostensibly that. I mean, he's not that of the party. You understand what I'm saying. He's ostensibly one of their leaders.
I think this is true of a lot of what I would call old-time conservatives, even ultra-conservatives. They do not like where they see their party going. They think it's been hijacked by the unwashed mob who they have almost as much contempt for as they do minorities that they try to persecute. They were kind of in the same vein that the German industrialists thought they could use and control Hitler to further their interests. I think they thought they could do that with the MAGA mob. And now they're realizing, no, they don't control them. The mob is controlling them. So they're running, I won't go so far as to say scared, but they're definitely nervous and uncomfortable. And I think they're trying to find a way to get their party back. You also see this like what happened recently in Colorado, where a number of very prominent Republicans openly changed party because they didn't like where the Republicans were going. And I think you're seeing a lot of that going on because they realize that if you have that stink on you when all of this is over, you have no political future at all. So they want to distance themselves. They want to put those people back in the box, but treat them, and I know this will piss off a lot of people, but I will say it anyway. They want to treat the MAGA mob similar to the way the Democrats treat the progressive wing, which is, we know you don't like our candidates, but your only other option is to vote for the fascist. So we know you're going to vote for us, even though you don't like us. And I think that's what is happening to an extent with what's going on with the Republicans right now, is they're looking at this saying, no, we want you back in that condition where we know you're not going to vote for the Democrats, but we don't want you being able to say what goes on in our party.
Good luck with that. The tiger.
Yeah,
they've been riding that tiger. Yeah, that's
Yeah, don't let go of the airs. It's a hungry tiger, dudes.
Yeah. Well, and Palin, oh my God, Palin's in the news again. I was just like, we have Michelle Bachmann, and it's what is this, political gin rummy? We've got the whole set.
Oh yeah, man. Every time they come up with another wackadoodle, you go, no. There aren't people that are this stupid in the country. How the hell did you find this one? And then you wait for the next election cycle, and it's like, Jesus H. Christ, where did you find this one? This one's even worse.
I have to hand it to them. Every time I really was running around saying George W. Bush is the worst president we've ever had. Now, I know if you go to some of the, I was just like, okay, there's competition there, admittedly, but at least for my generation, George W. Bush, just, an idiot, incompetent, this, that, the whole nine yards. And here's all the things he's done that's damaging. But every time I sit there and say, okay, you guys have come up with the worst candidate you possibly could have. It's like, oh no, wait. Wait till you see who we got next.
Here, hold my beer.
Yeah. Oh my God. And the next one, and it looks like the next one that they're going to shoot for. I don't, everybody I've talked to who knows anything about politics says it's DeSantis. He's the guy who the Republicans are going to run. And they're not going to let Trump run again. The possibility is he can't.
I love the latest series of ads. I love the latest series of ads I've been seeing of him with the Top Gun fighter pilot outfit and everything. Of I'm a real man. Oh come on, dude.
There was I don't think we have the commercial loaded, but we played this a while back. A black guy running for Congress, I think, and he was talking about his Second Amendment rights. And you see him just having coffee in his house, and he's in the kitchen. There's a swimming pool in the back, and there's this nice. He's having coffee. He's talking about his Second Amendment rights, and it's just like, but the KKK was founded by Democrats. And all of a sudden, you see these guys in hoods just coming up out of the. Exactly. They're all coming out of the. If somebody's got the link to this, I'll play it. I'll play it if I can get it before we go. But you see all these guys in hoods coming out. And it's like, and then he comes out with an AR-15, and he just strides right out into the back of his lawn. He's got an AR-15, and all these Klansmen are there with hoods. They see the gun. They got bats, but he's got this thing, and he just holds it up, puts on his sunglasses like CSI, that kind of just the boom. He's like, that's when I know I've got my rights for when the Democrats are coming for me. And that's like all the Klansmen run. It's just like, holy shit. Wow.
Yeah, seriously? Does he really think there are any Democratic Klansmen left?
Well, and I hate to break it to you, but at the time, the Democrats were the conservative party and the liberals were the Republicans.
I get that. I absolutely get the historical reference. But in today's political context, that's like, having Jewish Nazis running the extermination camps or something. It doesn't equate.
No, I mean, it was actually a beautifully done commercial, but I was like, okay, this is the watermark. I was like, it's on. I was like, I now know that the election season started because, wow. It was actually a beautifully done commercial. It was really well done. You could tell he found a professional producer, professional writer. They did the whole thing up, and here he is strutting out there with his AR-15 against the Klan. I was like, wow. Oh, dear Lord.
The gun lobby. Gotta love them.
Oh, well, I'd like to get back on. We've just been so busy. I want to get back on, what's her name? Maria Boostin, I think is her name. She was head of the gun lobby for Moscow, which apparently they got a gun lobby immediately when they realized that they want to infiltrate the NRA. And she got in bed with all the NRA folks and literally in bed with one of them, and that ended up being a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but she was FSB. She's a spy. She's been kicked out of the U.S. for spying, and now she's working in whatever their equivalent is of Parliament, one of their things. But she's
Duma.
Yeah, the Duma. Thank you. So she oh dear Lord, it's a little scary how easily. And I make it sound like it's easy. We've had this conversation before. The Russians try 20 different things to get at somebody, and if one of them works, oh hey, it worked, and then that's the one they go with. And it looks like, how did they plan that and get that one? No, they had like 20 other plans that failed. They only need one that works. But it's a little scary how well they seem to have influenced U.S. politics, beginning to end. It's. Dear Lord. But we'll save that for another time. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to, I'm going to also say goodnight to the kids and start wrapping up here, but I'll definitely be in the VC chat, and I will, hold on one sec before I go. Whenever I get a message as the show's ending, okay. I guess I called it. Hold on. All right. Thank you. We'll put that up. Okay. So we do have this. Okay. This is worth mentioning here. So we'll bring this up. I had said this jokingly, but it looks like we have here now. This is this was just leaked. It's a photograph, I'm being told, of Mitch McConnell's mom and dad meeting for the first time. That's what I've been told. We haven't gotten the source of this yet, but I have high confidence that this is an accurate image. So you heard it here first. We have our sources. Thank you for that. All right. So
in-depth research. Your research department never ceases to amaze.
Thank you. Me too. Couldn't be more proud. All right. So we'll see you in the VC. I'll do a little VC announcement for anyone who wants to join us. Thank you once again, Lance. It was a pleasure as always. And when the shit starts to hit the fan, I'm sure we'll be having you on for more formal shows. But in the meantime, look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye.